Assignment education on KET is made possible with generous support from
the Kentucky Community and Technical College System. 16 colleges working together to educate skilled workers and create better lives for a better Kentucky.
The Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence is committed to engaging Kentuckians on education issues and closing achievement gaps, building a groundswell for better education, early childhood through college. Learn more at pritchardcommittee.org.
I'm Sam Corbett on Assignment Education, the show that seeks out positive things that are happening in schools throughout Kentucky. We examine the challenges and shine the spotlight on solutions that hopefully will have an impact on all of us. This time, we tackle topics like school suspensions, why they're down in Jefferson County because of a new approach to discipline. So you're going to go up to great job? Also, how technology is changing everything in local schools, both for students and teachers.
I think it's a pretty great resource.
We'll drop into a unique after-hours reading program in Lexington that's connecting kids with books and their families. And we begin in Louisville, where students are taking a whole new approach to history.
Now, I told you 1 minute.
He puts the content in a way that we can understand it as students.
So why is that the case? What is
You can't change history, but you can change the way it's being taught. And that's exactly what they're doing here at Seneca High School.
This is an entirely new way of teaching that's based on questions.
Brandon Riddle has taught history for 11 years, but never like this. All right, so the way you're teaching today is a whole lot different than the way you were teaching first, second, third year.
All the way up through the first 10 years. We always try to come at the history with the perspective of the people who are impacted, as opposed to, you know, the history makers, the leaders, so to speak.
I thought it was just going to be another history class, but it turned out that it was a class about opinions.
What we're attempting to do now that's a lot different is it's about arguments.
We interact with each other.
It's definitely more of like a discussion, group-oriented thing. It's a democratic classroom as opposed to you sit there, you read this, you do this.
It's a class born from the racial equity policy at Jefferson County Public Schools.
The class that's created from this is African American Studies, and it's an elective.
Ryan New works at the district level, helping to revamp social studies curriculums.
Whose stories are we telling? Whose stories are we leaving out?
In the past, the curriculum focused more on just the history, I would say, and a lot of time the perspective of the people involved in the history got skewed.
No one's required to take notes or even test.
We're going to make our claims, we're going to defend them with evidence, and the better you're able to defend your arguments, the better your grade.
So if you have a different opinion, we're not going to judge you for it. We want to hear it. That's the whole goal, because teachers, they tell you something, that's what you believe. But what Mr. Riddle does as a teacher is he listens to everybody.
We need to prepare students to think critically and to be able to interact in their society and their community in a rational, reasoned manner.
You don't actually feel it.
Mr. Riddle, he's been a great teacher.
Interest level is definitely higher.
And I understood Black culture more than my parents could teach me.
Of course, the first step in learning is actually showing up for class. That's why reducing school suspensions is such a top priority for schools in Kentucky. And at one school in Louisville, a new strategy is already proving to be very effective. So you're going to go up to great job? Student suspensions are down in Jefferson County Public Schools dramatically.
Absolutely.
Overall, our elementary schools are a little over 50% down.
It's not because of a policy change as much as it is a change in approach focused on the root causes of bad behavior.
Helping kids make good decisions about their feelings.
Katie DeFerrari runs the department in charge of culture and climate at JCPS Schools, which now has a team of psychologists and behavioral experts.
They are able to put plans in place to prevent some of those triggers and issues from occurring. It's really successful, especially when we kind of put the attention back on as adults. What can we do to not have the student outcomes that we're getting?
We have always had a population with high suspension numbers.
At Roosevelt Perry Elementary, suspension numbers are way down. Wow. Principal Nicole Marshall credits a new curriculum that actually teaches good behavior.
It's literacy based, and it teaches kids what does angry look like.
Students track their good and bad behavior with clips.
My clip chart's right over there.
Reaping rewards when they do well.
Okay. They have opportunities. If they clip down, okay, I can get myself together.
If they continue to do well, then they clip onto their teacher. and then continue to do well, they clip up to Miss Marshall. And it's just as simple as a fun-looking, cool-looking pencil, and they love it.
Rainbow.
Small tokens helping to make a big difference.
I've run out of pencils and had to order, so I've probably bought close to 7,000 pencils so far this year.
There are many factors that can lead to bad behavior in school, one of which is hunger. And one of the best ways to battle that is with generosity. Sometimes the most important thing in a student's backpack isn't schoolwork. For thousands of local kids, taking home food for the weekend from Blessings in a Backpack is vital.
It's lunchtime.
For many of them, that's the food that they're going to have all weekend.
Stewart Academy Assistant Principal Brandon Cobb says the effect of hunger is significant at school, causing shorter attention spans and gaps in academic achievement.
One of the main things that we try to do is ensure that we get all kids the basic needs that they have to be successful before we even begin with academics.
Kids who come to school hungry can't be expected to learn at the rate of other kids who have been fed.
So we start with the basic essential physiological needs that they need first, and we address those, and then we move into the academic support that they need for success.
We have Fruit Loops here, and we have Apple Jacks.
Tacola Bowling makes sure the backpacks are delivered discreetly.
I have a locker key that's universal for all the lockers, and I deliver them in their lockers, so when they come in on Friday mornings, they can privately put it in their backpacks and put it on their backs and go home. I think that's important because if you don't do that, then most students will shy away from the resource.
Critics might say, well, why does the school have to deal with this issue? Families should be doing this.
The school is a part of the whole system, and so when you have that scholar for those many hours, it's very important that you not just focus on the scholar, but strengthening the family as well.
There is no stigma associated with it. Kids are not embarrassed to receive it.
If we didn't have Blessings in a Backpack, we would refer them to a local food pantry or a Dare to Care, but if they don't have transportation, they can't get there. So this helps to eliminate barriers that families and students will face.
Here at Stewart, the program runs entirely on a donation from LG&E, so the school can focus on raising kids instead of raising money.
Previously, it was done grassroots kind of operations. We were grateful to have that from LG&E to where it was a one-time thing, and it saved us a lot of time and a lot of energy.
Blessings is a great partnership because we have employees that are in this area that we know live and work in this area and are involved in this area, and so it makes sense that we would support a great school like Stewart.
It's a very important program.
And the Blessings in the Backpack are more than just food.
Valentine's Day, holidays, little notes in there and things for the students to have as well.
It makes it a personal connection with staff members too, because they look forward to receiving what they're going to need, especially to get them through the weekends.
And that's important for everyone. It should be important to everyone in our community.
Very important that you not just focus on the scholar, but strengthening the family as well.
It has caused a lot of positive success for those kids, and also has made their behavior and performance academically in school a lot better.
You can find them online at blessingsinAbackpack.org. And now to Lexington, where a reading program organized by the Kentucky Humanities Council is getting reluctant readers excited about books. And that's not all. While many families are home watching primetime TV, families here at Garden Springs Elementary in Lexington are reading.
Found that one.
It's a program called Primetime Family Reading Time, held at public schools and libraries across the state.
6-week program.
Kathleen Poole is the Associate Director for the Kentucky Humanities Council, which organizes the program.
They know how to read, but they don't really like to read.
Each week, families read books together, and it goes way beyond story time.
And it's not about what's in the book, but it's showing the parents that when you sit down and read together with your children, that it's the impetus for having a family discussion. And then we try to take away all the obstacles. We provide childcare for the younger siblings, so bring them along. We provide a meal, so it's at dinner time, and come enjoy and have a meal and sit down with the scholar and storyteller and talk about books together.
This is a whole different thing.
Gwen Henderson is a PhD from UK who leads discussions about the books with both kids.
How did the other kids know?
And parents.
Not only are we connecting kids with reading, but we're connecting families with each other. There's this sharing across generations within a family and sharing between all the families. It's really remarkable. That's what makes Primetime really different.
And no one is left out.
And the questions are asked in English or Spanish, and everything is bilingual.
It's just been amazing.
Garden Springs Elementary librarian Kay Snyder can't believe how much impact the program is having.
Just to see the parents and the families talking with each other, but it's also opening lines of communication that later on when they're teenagers and what'd you do at school today? Nothing. And they're going into their lair. This is a great time where they've built these communication skills that they can use later on when communication gets a little tougher.
Reading is the key to lifelong learning.
Every student faces challenges in school, and there's nothing harder to overcome than a learning difference. But nowadays, we know a lot more about them and how to help kids overcome them.
This is my first year and I really enjoy it.
A small school in Hikes Point is making a big difference in the lives of kids with learning differences.
I couldn't really focus.
Yeah, I didn't concentrate a lot. I go home, I end up crying.
Many who struggled in traditional classrooms are finding new hope here at the Meredith Dunn School.
And now I'm able to understand all the work that I do.
I understood what they were learning.
With customized curriculums, students are overcoming a wide range of issues, from ADHD to dyslexia. And they come from all parts of the city, many with the help of financial aid, since the school receives no public funding.
I think it's life-changing.
Kathy Beam is head of the Meredith Dunn School, which began in 1971 with just 3 part-time students.
We try to provide the instruction that fits the child.
It's not difficult, and it makes sense. And it's really a great year.
Now enrollment pushes past 200, and administrators believe that the need is even greater.
For every child that's here, there are probably 3 that could benefit.
Those who do find their way here will eventually make their way back to the mainstream when it's time for high school.
It's really helped me.
And they're finding new hope for the future that once seemed so far from their grasp.
Great learning environment.
It's prepared me for high school and made it a lot easier for me in life.
Learning differences are a lot more common than you might think. But the good news is we now know a whole lot more than we used to. And right now I'm with Dr. Maggie Wright, a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in learning differences. Dr. Wright, thanks for joining us today. Can you help our viewers, can you define for us what learning differences mean?
Sure. So learning differences is an umbrella term. It's not an official clinical term that would be used by psychologists or educational diagnosticians. However, it does describe children whose brains learn information in a different way than is typical for their age and grade. So the most common learning difference is going to be dyslexia, which is categorized as a specific learning disorder in reading.
Just how common is dyslexia with students in the state of Kentucky?
Dyslexia affects 1 in 5 people, so it's incredibly common, and it impacts about 20% of our population. A second learning difference is going to be in math, and we call this dyscalculia. Some people refer to this as the dyslexia of math, and it affects a smaller percentage of children than dyslexia. And then we have dysgraphia, which is a learning difference in writing. And that is going to impact how a child expresses their thoughts on paper or the actual physical act of handwriting. They might have some difficulty forming the letters on paper, keeping things in line. Some children will have dyslexia only, that will be their only challenge, but many will have either dyscalculia or dysgraphia, and oftentimes ADHD as well, in addition to their dyslexia.
Quickly, if you can, define ADHD for us.
Well, ADHD is a condition that's diagnosed by extreme difficulty with paying attention, maintaining focus and organization, hyperactive behavior, and impulsive behavior. And then it's also characterized by difficulties with self-regulation. And so we'll see children who they might be able to focus and pay attention at some times, but not others, and they become very dysregulated with emotion and behavior as a result of those difficulties.
Based upon your experience, how early can we diagnose these issues within children? Is 3 or 4 years old too young?
Many children with dyslexia develop language in an unusual or atypical way. That is because dyslexia is a condition that affects language processing. So there may be a mild speech delay or language delay in the 1 to 3-year-old age group. When they go to preschool, they typically will have a harder time learning the alphabet and associating the letters with their sounds. And while they will eventually master this task, it takes them much, much longer, and it's a lot harder for them to learn this simple skill. As we move out of preschool, we also will see children struggle with rhyming and rhyme awareness. So typically by age 4, a child should be able to very easily give you a list of rhyming words. So what rhymes with cat? Very easily, bat, mat, sat, fat. Children with dyslexia typically don't do that quite as naturally, and they might not hear something that rhymes. They may not think Dr. Seuss books are very interesting or funny because they don't respond to the rhyme of that type of literature the same way that kids without dyslexia do.
So if I'm a parent or grandparent raising a young child, what are the 2 or 3 things that I should be watching for as it relates to my children?
The child with dyslexia might be able to tell you the letter names and their sounds, but they cannot blend them together to sound out the word and recognize what it is. On the flip side of that, they'll also struggle learning what we call sight words. So these are words that are not easily decodable because they tend to follow irregular patterns. And most kids without dyslexia, with a little bit of practice and repetition, will learn those without much difficulty. Our children with dyslexia struggle significantly in that area as well. So these are some early signs that reading isn't developing at the same pace. Many parents tell us they know something is wrong, they can tell that something's not quite right with their child's learning, but the school might say they're still very young, all children learn at their own pace, he's a boy, it's okay, they'll catch up, just read to them more at home. That approach typically is going to put the child behind even further. We want to give them intervention as quickly as possible.
Give our family some guidance, some advice of the process they should go through to make sure that they're doing everything and the school's doing everything they can to help the child.
The strongest risk factors for having dyslexia is a family history of dyslexia. So I oftentimes will suggest that parents and grandparents stop and reflect on their own family history. Do we have someone in our family line that also struggled in school? And maybe they weren't diagnosed. Maybe they weren't officially recognized or evaluated. But is there someone in the family line that we can see that also struggled in these areas, that maybe they were very bright but school was very difficult for them, their spelling is terrible, they were a slow reader? That is going to put a child at greater risk because dyslexia is so highly genetic and inherited through the family tree. So if you see these signs with your child that they're struggling and you can identify a possible family history of dyslexia, then I would suggest getting an evaluation as quickly as possible. Certainly early intervention is going to be the best course. If we can prevent that gap from becoming very wide, then we can prevent a lot of failure and heartache for children at school. That being said, most of the time we're not actually diagnosing and identifying dyslexia until after the 3rd grade.
Oh, okay.
And that's because we have a lot of wait and see approaches to the early grades of education, and also many professionals are still under the false belief that we cannot diagnose dyslexia until the 3rd grade or until a child has had several years of reading instruction, and that's just not true at all. A skilled evaluator can actually identify dyslexia with 92% accuracy at the age of 5.5 and in kindergarten.
Since we're so much more knowledgeable today about learning issues, can I assume that we also have very effective strategies that will help children deal with these issues?
We're able to provide parents with a roadmap of their child's needs and then connect them with the resources locally in the community. Depending on severity, some children may always be a bit behind their age mates, even with good intervention, especially if we start later. So dyslexia is on a spectrum. You can have mild, moderate, severe, or profound dyslexia. The more severe the symptoms and the more severe your presentation, the more intensive intervention and the longer you need to be in intervention to make the progress. It's not a lost cause. It does take more time and more intensive intervention to bridge the gap for older children. But we've even seen a lot of success helping adults who are diagnosed with dyslexia. It's never too late to start an intervention.
Dr. Maggie Wright, thanks for taking time to help us better understand learning differences. Truly a major issue for kids throughout the state of Kentucky.
Thank you so much for asking me.
Technology is connecting kids to classrooms like never before, and we found a school in Louisville where the wave of the future is already here. So what score did you get? Newburgh Middle School is going high-tech.
Definitely an improvement.
Thanks to a multi-million-dollar grant from Verizon, students are turning in textbooks for tablets.
So much more hands-on. All of my students have their own iPad with a monthly data plan.
Nicole Adele is Newburgh's principal. She saw the benefits of the iPads overnight.
By midnight that night, my colleagues were contacting me saying, Mrs. Adele, kids have turned in their work already. They're like chomping at the bit.
Deborah Gandenberger teaches language arts, now in a whole new way.
It's just so much fun in the classroom.
Everybody does seem more interested in the schoolwork.
Yes. Students can expand their knowledge on their own with the iPads.
The iPads are connecting students to the internet and also each other.
You can collaborate easier.
We're all learning together.
Absolutely, yeah.
Callie Thompson teaches history.
There's all kinds of virtual tours that we can take. They can go to ancient Egypt or China.
We are having more opportunities.
With the iPads, learning is more engaging and more equitable.
Why can't all kids have high-speed internet access at home? And now that's not an issue because they do.
That's a beautiful thing.
Technology can be an effective way to get kids engaged in class, but it's also proving to be a great tool for teachers.
That will be more than over.
Students aren't the only ones with backpacks at school this year. Jefferson County teachers have them too.
So write your 40.
Only these are digital backpacks, packed with a whole workroom full of resources.
It's a very innovative model.
So it's kind of like your all-in-one stop shop for teachers.
All the information is vetted by the school system and stored in the cloud.
It is a one-stop shop.
Tanya Arnold is the principal at Fern Creek Elementary.
Instead of our teachers having to look for different places to build their lessons, they have this one place, and it has all of our district planning units. It's meeting the standards for the state. It allows you to look at the standards and see how they fit into your own program.
We've tried to simplify and streamline.
Felicia Smith is an assistant superintendent with JCPS.
Early in the year, you're going to find teachers in need of their curriculum frameworks, their standards, resources to help set up structures for behavior management in their classroom. As the year moves on, we know that teachers need more sophisticated resources for planning for effective instruction in the middle of the year, and then, of course, as they enter into the spring for testing.
And so every third grade teacher in JCPS is using this same resource.
It's all there for them.
JCPS Administrator Susan Price took a lead role in developing this innovative approach to teaching.
You know, we're designing for 21st century learners, and so we want teachers to have the resources they need to be able to design the instruction for the 21st century learner.
Before the teacher backpack was introduced in Jefferson County, teachers were going to many different places to find those resources, and now they can just use the teacher backpack as their main source for credible, reliable, high-quality resources that are available to them that are also connected specifically to JCPS initiatives.
It's brand new software designed exclusively for JCPS by JCPS.
It has really caused cross-departmental partnerships across the district so that we can look at quality resources, understand what quality means in resources and the tools that are in the backpack.
I think it's a pretty great resource.
Third grade teacher Kelsey Siegfried is excited to add the digital backpack to the tools of her trade.
It's kind of like your all-in-one tool shop for all things, whether it be curriculum, instructional frameworks, resources for teachers to use with student backpacks as well. There's samples of student work and reflections that students have put into their own backpack pieces, so teachers can see a model of what exemplary student work looks like. Kind of nice because you've got that baseline for math, reading, writing, science and social studies, but we can also delve a little bit deeper wherever we feel it's needed.
I think you're going to see student learning be more focused on the end goal.
So it's kind of really nice to have. It's very useful.
What about playtime? That can be just as important to the development of a child as classroom time. In some cases, we have kind of lost the play aspect of education and we're focused too much on the other stuff. At Holy Trinity Parish School in Louisville, they're deeply committed to recess.
And trying to make sure that each side of that child is developed.
And Principal Jack Richards says that goes for every child.
We had several students that couldn't play with their classmates.
It's no fun if some of the kids can't play.
Steve Diebold and his wife are parishioners at Holy Trinity who made a substantial gift, helping to create a new playground that's open to everyone.
We didn't want to see any child be excluded.
We needed this poured in place foundation, which is that like foamy material.
The gift was a godsend for Kylie and Nicholas Holscher, whose daughter Eden suffered a spinal cord injury when she was 5 years old.
She had no playground to play on because she's in a wheelchair. A wheelchair can't wheel across mulch. So she spent a lot of her time sitting under trees, sitting at picnic tables, blowing bubbles and things like that, but basically sitting on the outside of playgrounds and watching all the other students at school play while she watched.
Right. The new playground with its poured-in-place surface and accessible equipment has changed everything, and not just for Eden.
She was surrounded by kids. They see her as, yeah, she's in a wheelchair, but she can still do what we can do, and they weren't able to see that before.
It's nice to see so many positive things happening in education throughout Kentucky. I'm Sam Corbett, and we'll see you again with more good news from our Kentucky schools on Assignment Education. Assignment Education on KET is made possible with generous support from
the Kentucky Community and Technical College System. 16 colleges working together to educate skilled workers and create better lives for a better Kentucky.
The Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence is committed to engaging Kentuckians on education issues and closing achievement gaps, building a groundswell for better education, early childhood through college. Learn more at pritchardcommittee.org.